Of the case, Muribi Mwangi interrogates on this week's Behind the Headlines.
No longer just any triangular space in sea, but a symbolic epitome of how a maritime dispute over what might appear as just a drop of water in a vast ocean can swiftly snowball into a diplomatic nightmare, capable of plunging even closely knitted neighbors to war. And this is perhaps Kenya's greatest nightmare, as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs under Cabinet Secretary Monica Juma struggles to get the Federal Republic of Somalia to the dialogue table over this disputed 100,000 square miles of maritime space in the Indian Ocean before November this year, when this delicate matter will be firmly in the hands of the International Court of Justice.
If you look at our foreign policy, one of the 6 pillars is the pursuit of peaceful negotiation and settlement in the settlement of disputes.
But will Nairobi really succeed at getting Mogadishu on the negotiating table within the 2 months preceding the hearings? In late August, Kenya wrote to the African Union seeking intervention of the Peace and Security Council to convince Somalia to join the dialogue table over the bitter maritime dispute between the two countries. That meeting had been slated for the 21st of August, only 2 weeks to 9th September, when the ICJ was due to begin hearing the Kenya-Somalia case. But in a swift response, which also somewhat demonstrates the diplomatic hurdles in the delicate Kenya-Somalia matter, Somali Foreign Affairs Minister rejected the request and declined Somalia's attendance of the meeting, saying the country had already pledged to comply with the court's judgment, whatever the outcome, and it would thus be inappropriate to accept the Commission's invitation as the matter was still pending before court, a case which the court pushed to November, albeit reluctantly, after Kenya wrote to the Hague-based court in the last minute, seeking a postponement of the hearings to finalize reconstitution of the Kenyan legal team.
Kenya must now step up its diplomatic engagement with strong friends who have got the capacity and the ability to influence the course of things without saying too much about what is in court, being a lawyer.
We need to look this thing deep, not just at Somalia, but who else is involved in fueling this kind of thing and why. The why is that they just want to keep Kenya out and they want to be in control of everything in Somalia.
And the suspicion between the two countries, it appears, has stretched right to the bench of the judges set to hear the dispute. Earlier this year, Kenyan-based Ugandan activist David Matsanga filed a petition at the ICJ seeking recusal of the court's president Abdul Kawi Ahmed Yusuf on grounds of alleged bias in Somalia's favor and allegedly commenting on the case outside court. But the Kenyan discomfort with the ICJ case, widely seen to buttress Somalia's rejection of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, stretches down to the Kenyan parliament. In August this year, National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale, in a motion co-authored with his minority counterpart John Badi, challenged the Foreign Affairs Ministry to reactivate its diplomatic charm and to pursue mediation efforts through such bodies as the African Union, the Intergovernmental Peace on Development IGAD, as well as the United Nations Security Council. Among the Dual-Mbadi raft of recommendations, however, was the call for Kenya to deploy the military to the contentious Ocean Triangle should diplomacy fail. Incidentally, Somalia took notice of this statement on the 21st of August, cautioning Kenya against raising the specter of military action or solving by force of arms, a matter already entrusted to the ICJ, the highest judicial organ of the United Nations. A route Somalia argues is not new and should not be misconstrued for being an unfriendly act. Somalia citing a similar example in the protracted Ghana-Cote d'Ivoire maritime dispute, recently resolved by the Tribunal for Law of the Sea, and whose verdict both countries have pledged to comply with. The Kenyan parliament has since resumed from recess, and Duale says he is in the process of expediting debate of his motion.
We are saying in altering the border of this country, any part of the border of this country, whether it's by land or sea, the people of Kenya must have a say through a referendum.
We have solved conflict with Somalia from time immemorial using both diplomatic and good relationship. But the idea of going to court may not be augur well for both nations. Kenya.
Confronting the ICJ is the query on whether the Kenya-Somalia maritime border, guided by the 200 nautical miles law, ought to extend seawards, horizontally as Kenya demands or diagonally as Somalia claims, a standoff that has elicited a bitter dispute between the two countries over the space said to be rich in oil and aquatic life, amid reports that multinationals eyeing these resources might have a hand in this dispute. The court will have 1 week in November to hear both parties before setting a date for the final verdict.